Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay.
Welcome to another episode of Pit Lane Parlay. I am your host, Mike Jokum. Matt is joining me. Jess is unfortunately working some ridiculous hours this week. So, Jess, we miss you, and Jess will, I think, be back next week. So, with that, we will dive right into it. First off, just want to give our well wishes to Braden Eves, Indy Pro 2000 driver who Matt and I interviewed a month or two ago. After a collision with Daniel Frost, it looks like his right rear tire got wedged under the car and kind of launched it into the air, landed on its roll hoop upside down. He has a few fractured vertebrae and a fracture above his right eye. Braden's one of those youngsters that is being talked about all throughout the INDYCAR paddock already, and only in Indy Pro 2000. He's got a big future ahead of him, and he was actually at, I think, Newcastle Raceway the day after his accident, cheering on his buddy Jacob Abel. So good to see him up and moving, and glad to see that, in a few months he'll be back in the swing of things and in the gym getting ready for the 2021 season. So glad to see it wasn't worse. It was super scary, and hopefully him and his family are having a relaxing week.
Yeah, well wishes to Braden, a speedy recovery. I'm glad you're out and about and still living your life, per se. So hope for a quick recovery. It's going to obviously be a bummer to not see you in a car for the rest of the year, but you'll come back stronger than ever. And hopefully, knock on wood, if there's an Indy Lights season next year, you'll be participating, because I think you definitely showed the paddock and whatnot that you've earned it.
Yeah, and before we preview Mid-Ohio, Stingray Robb won all 3 rounds at the Indy Road Course triple header this weekend. Actually put himself in the Indy Pro 2000 points lead right now. So pretty cool to see. Stingray is another dude who's awesome. We had him on one weekend last year. So let's move on.
So moving on to the Mid-Ohio preview. So last week we told you to ignore our section about Mid-Ohio. For the first time ever in Pit Lane Parlay history, the news didn't come out prior to our recording. So that was fantastic.
It's wild.
The powers that be waited till Saturday to announce that both Mid-Ohio races that have long been rumored were confirmed. So we will have 2 races this weekend, and the track also came out today, which is Tuesday, and said that there is going to be 6,000 attendance max. So if you're one of the lucky 6,000 people, congratulations. Green Savory Racing Promotions did reach out to fans pretty much immediately starting on Saturday to kind of coordinate with that. And then so today the number officially came out. So to recap, so obviously there's going to be 2 races this year, but the top 5 from last season was that thrilling finish between Scott Dixon, the winner, and Felix Rosenquist. Ryan Hunter-Ray finished 3rd, Will Power 4th, Alexander Rossi 5th. Newgarden had his incident on the last lap. Kind of weird. I guess this wasn't really in our rundown, but kind of weird that Mid-Ohio, the last 2 or 3 seasons, has put on these incredible shows and led to a lot of drama, versus the years prior. Mid-Ohio, it was tendencies to be a snoozer. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get some fun races again like we've seen with these new aero kits?
Yeah, I think we're in for a great weekend. We're getting to the point in the year. This is race, 9 and 10 of the season, 8 and 9 of the season.
There's 3 left after this, so it should be 10 and 11.
Okay, thank you. It's all the same. Either way, we're getting to the back third of the schedule where you guys really want to start impressing for 2021. Guys probably aren't fighting for the championship, but are fighting to go up as high as they can in the championship order or rookie of the year. So you might get a little bit more aggressive. There's always the chance of rain in Mid-Ohio, especially in September. So I think we're in for a very unpredictable and exciting weekend.
Yeah, it should be a good time. Hopefully we'll get more races like the last 2 years, because it's been a lot of fun. But speaking of the unpredictable. Are you going to stick by that when it comes to the question on the rundown of, are we going to see similar results in both races, or is it going to be a mixed bag like we've seen a couple times already with the doubleheaders this year?
Man, I think I feel lame sticking with the same answer for this question every time, but I think we're going to see lots of differentiation again. Like I mentioned, the potential for some stormy weather, the fact we're getting towards the end of the season and things might get crazy. It's mid-Ohio. There's been some craziness the last couple of years, so I don't see why not. I think we're going to see some craziness, especially in terms of who finishes where. And real quick, there's only one practice before the first qualifying. I think Saturday morning there's one practice, so there's not a lot of on-track time like they usually have been getting at these road and street courses this year. So that could lead to guys who kind of figure things out and race well and have a better race too.
Yeah, with limited track time, yeah, it definitely throws a wrench into some people's plans, and we'll see how that works out. I do think we're going to tend to see similar results, and I just say that because it just seems like Dixon, Felix, etc., like the Penske crowd, they seem like they have that track figured out, and it's not the easiest place to pass, even though that kind of contradicts. Well, we're both saying that we're expecting a fun race, but there could be other things that happen other than just overtaking that makes the race fun. So it's I do think we'll see maybe like 7 or so drivers in kind of dominate the top 5 between the 10 available spots over the 2 races. So that's what I'll go with. 4 to 5 doubleheaders. I don't know if I was sleeping or had a few too many beers or what. I didn't realize that the Harvest Grand Prix next race weekend after this one was a doubleheader. Did I just like snooze through that or what?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry,
So
no
it must just be me then.
Yes.
Apologies to everybody out there. There's probably a lot of brilliant press releases and articles about it, and I apparently just missed them. This makes Mid-Ohio the 4th doubleheader of the year, and we do have one left, like I just said, after this. Getting sick of them yet? Do you like them? Do you still kind of, they're okay? What are your thoughts about them now that we're on number 4?
I fall somewhere in the middle. There are things I really do like about them. They are really tiring, even for when you're just covering a multiple races. Just feels like it's still a lot. So by the end of the weekend, I'm pretty well beat, and I'm probably not moving more than 5 feet from where I'm currently recording. So I think obviously 2020 is a weird year, so there's not much you can do in terms of fitting in races. But I really hope we don't have 5 doubleheaders next year.
Yeah, kind of alluding to your point. It's kind of like a necessary evil right now, or
Yeah.
in a perfect world it wouldn't happen, but it is what it is. So I'm just kind of, again, glad that we have a season. But yes, for 2021, knock on wood, given all the underlying circumstances, hopefully everything is sorted out. So if you've had a few too many and forgot that there was a doubleheader after this weekend, congrats. You're with the same boat as I am. So one more quick topic before we get to our predictions. So Mid-Ohio has kind of like always been the unofficial like kicking off point for silly season in years past. And that's kind of just given with the time slot it usually gets, which is usually late July, early August. Kind of coincides with about 2/3 of the way through the season. Drivers start to figure out their sponsorship and their plans, etc. And we figure out what openings there might be at other teams, which leads drivers to start negotiating. Obviously, 2020 is 2020, and silly season hasn't really started yet. And I don't think, unlike years past, we get to Mid-Ohio this year and all of a sudden silly season just starts. I think we're still maybe a month or so away from news and drivers moving teams, etc. Doesn't mean, though, like we alluded to early in the episode, this is 5 races left, but 2 of them are gone after this weekend. So after this weekend, there's only 3 races left. And we kind of start having to look around the corner as far as who's going to be back next year, who's going to be on the hot seat, etc. So, Mike, is there anybody, in your opinion, that might be racing for their job this weekend?
Yeah, 100%. We're getting to crunch time, especially there's still doubt if St. Pete will happen at the end of the year, depending on the state of Florida. So you're, like you said, Mid-Ohio is typically 2/3 through the year. That's pretty much where it is now by the end of the weekend. Mid-Ohio last year, I believe, is where Rossi and Andretti made their 2020 announcement. So I think there are definitely a handful of guys that are going to be fighting for their jobs. And I also think there are some silly season things starting that we haven't quite heard about and probably won't until after the year, but I'll just leave that at that.
So anybody in particular you think should be worried / looking to have a good result this weekend?
Yes, I think, let me see here. I need to look at it. Who actually still drives an IndyCar, because I can't remember that anymore. I don't know if it's fair to say Max Chilton needs to be worried, but Connor Daly has constantly had better results in the same Carlin car all season. So does Carlin finally move on from Max after this year? Zach Veach, I think, really needs a good result this weekend. Man, I know he shouldn't be worried about his job, but I think Santino needs a good result this weekend. They've kind of had a bunch of pit road blunders that have really hurt his results, but he hasn't had as many highs as Alex Palou has had this year. So Santino needs to keep going, and I'll just leave it at that.
So mine is Oliver Askew, and I know he is a rookie, and in my personal opinion, every driver should get at least 2 full-time seasons under their belt before we can take a step back and judge them too harshly. I mean, rookies have to go through a lot of obstacles their initial campaign, and there's a reason that rookies tend to make more mistakes. It's because they're new at this, they're trying to get up to speed as quickly as possible, etc. So Askew, unfortunately, right now has Pato O'Ward as his teammate, and O'Ward is third in the championship, has had several podiums, has looked really good at just about every race other than Texas. And then Askew's had a couple accidents, hasn't really, had that amazing race other than the podium at Iowa. And I guess the whole Iowa weekend was really strong for him. But outside of that, it hasn't really been the best year for Oliver. Good news is that it seems like his camp is still firmly in his corner. So I don't think he's necessarily on the hot seat, but he is a guy that I would be a little worried about in the future if he doesn't start replicating some of the results that Pato has been putting up this year. So we'll keep our eye on that one. All right, predictions. Who is going to do good this whole weekend at Mid-Ohio?
So let's start with Jess's predictions, since she did text them in earlier. She has Scott Dixon doing well. Shocking.
Boring.
Yeah, boo. And her bad pick is Alex Rossi. So
not boring.
Not boring. I like it. I'm going to go with Jack Harvey is going to have a good weekend. So if the host Mike Jinks is still on, I'm sorry, Jack. And I am going to say that Felix Rosenquist is going to have a bad weekend.
Ooh.
Spicy, I know.
Is that gut feeling?
Yeah, just there's not really much of a gut feeling, more of I just wanted to spice it up here and not pick like Max Chilton because we know he's going to be towards the back.
What?
Now he's going to win the race.
Oh, okay. Well, you just wait. Okay, so my good picks. I'm going to pick Felix Rosenquist. I think he's going to have a great weekend. And if Road America is any indication, I'm all set. And he finished second there last year, in which was, if we're being honest, was a pretty inconsistent year for Felix. So second place there is pretty good. My bad pick, unfortunately, is going to have to be one of those drivers that Mike mentioned as far as silly season, and Santino Ferrucci. He does seem like he's had a bit of bad luck this year. If I go down and give me 1 second, look at his Road America results. He was 6th and 6th. Geez, do I need to rethink this? No, I'm sticking with it because I know one of those he had a really good pit strategy. So credit to the team on that one. But I don't know. It just seems like one of those tracks where he could be prone to not qualify so well. And then if his car doesn't overtake as well in the race, he could be kind of stuck back there. Although that Steelmaster car has been kind of gold at Mid-Ohio. Bourdais had one hell of a drive in 2018. But I'm sticking with it. Still like Santino, but I think he might be in for a rough weekend.
All right, that's fair. Quick team pit lane shout outs. Shout out to Keith Tyron. Shout out to Just Dad Steve. And last but not least, Carrie Chim. So, guys, we're going to dive into some news before we get to our pitfalls and round out this week's episode. Robin Miller did his customary midway report card on IndyCar teams. I do have to say, from top to bottom, I pretty much agreed with everything he said, which doesn't really happen that much. But again, it's 2020, so nothing surprises me anymore. But I did want to bring up the fact that the worst team by far, according to Rob Miller, is Andretti Autosport, who I think he gave a D or a D minus to. I forget what the exact grade was. So, Matt, do you agree? Do you have any issue with Andretti being the worst team? And if you were writing this article, what grade would Andretti Autosport get?
Yeah, I think you got it wrong. I think it should have been F. I mean, what have they done so far? They got one podium through, what did we say we're at? 8 races now, 9 races.
9 races.
They have Marco Andretti win the pole, which for the Indy 500, which is a big deal. And that was, props to them. They had a fast week leading up to the Indy 500, but then it just never came together on race day. Yeah, I mean, I've been harping on Andretti Autosport all year, and unfortunately they have this expectation of doing well based on, stuff they've done over the past several years. We expect them to do good. We expect them to be constantly battling for wins and things like that. And it's just not happened this year. I mean, if this was Dale Coyne putting up these kind of results, we'd all just think, yeah, whatever. Hey, they got a podium this year. That's kind of a victory. But when you have Andretti Autosport, who's part of the big three, and they're just failing right now, it's a bit of a head scratcher. So they're going to definitely need to do some soul searching in the off season, find some new drivers or potentially new behind the scenes staff with engineering and strategy and etc. Because whatever they're doing right now is sadly not good enough by their standards. So given everything, I mean, it's an F. I don't think they have anything positive to build on other than just that pole. And even with that, Marco didn't lead a lap, unfortunately, for the race he got the pole in. So it made for good headlines. We'll say that, I guess.
Real quick before I give a few thoughts, I'll give him a D minus, and that's only because Marco got the pole and Rossi has a podium. And if we're counting Jack Harvey as part of the Andretti clan, he's had a decent season. I know the results don't necessarily show it because he had that brake failure at Road America and a few times where he's been caught out by the yellow flag at the wrong time. But yeah, I think Andretti maybe took it a little easy during the COVID shutdown where other teams kept preparing. Maybe they didn't do as much preparation. Obviously, I can't confirm that in any way, shape, or form, but it just feels that all these teams that, despite having a lack of practice, are still achieving what they want to achieve for the most part. And Andretti has gone like 4 steps backwards this year. So maybe on the preparation front, they could do better. Hopefully July taught them that so that this weekend they're a little improved, but I guess we shall see. Some kind of sad news emerged earlier today, Tuesday, that NASCAR announced that they want to convert Auto Club Speedway, which is Fontana out in California, from its current layout to a half-mile track. They'd like to start construction after 2021 for a 2022 event. So, like, dislike.
I think it's stupid. And, there aren't that many tracks like Fontana left. And while we have, as far as the IndyCar side, we've definitely had some bad memories at Fontana. Greg Moore's death, Justin Wilson's breaking of his hip with that multi-car crash that was pretty nasty. Michaela Lotion going into the fence, Ari Leindyke's injury I mean, so it's definitely had some moments where it makes you close your eyes and it's not good. But we've had some great moments like the fastest lap on a closed course ever, 2015. 2015. 2015 was pretty cool. Did I
Did you
say
like 2015?
2015 was awesome? Did I mention
Cool.
2015? 2015. So I don't like it. I'm sure. I don't. I guess I can't even say I'm sure. I think in the eyes of NASCAR, what they are doing is financially smart. Although I don't think tearing down a track and building a new one seems like you have to put up a lot of capital to start that up. So uh, no, it's bad. It's not a good idea.
I agree. I know there are people who do like it, but I mean, you have Irwindale Speedway, which is a similar size out in California. We've got plenty of NASCAR short ovals that they have completely forgotten about over the last 10 plus years that could probably be rehabbed for a quarter of the cost of turning a 2 mile speedway into a half-mile track. I'm just going to leave it at that. And yeah, I don't like it. So with that being said, would you, if you were in charge of the IndyCar schedule, try to find a way to get to Fontana in 2021 and as a last hurrah?
2021, obviously it'd be cool. I don't know. And then beyond that, you know, maybe let a NASCAR racer there to go by and see if it's any good. But I mean, it would be another oval, but I don't. It's kind of similar to Martinsville, isn't it? Sort of very
Yeah,
similar.
but I think Martinsville's bigger than a half mile. I think a half mile would probably be too small.
I think Martinsville's a half mile.
I'm going to say no. I really honestly think it comes down to what we have for IndyCar oval package right now, which I don't think will be very different this year versus next year. So I just don't think it's the best use of IndyCar's resources is to head back there. As fun as 2015 was, I don't think it's necessarily worth going back for 1 year before they change the track.
I'm sorry, I'm looking. It's okay, so it is 0.526 miles. That's not what was confusing though. I I'm borrowing my wife's laptop temporarily right now. And for some reason, after me putting Google as the default browser, it like switches back to Yahoo after 2 days every time, which is super irritating. But I type in Martinsville Speedway in the search bar and click go. And the first thing that comes up is sports fans products at Walmart. How does that happen?
That's some good. Well, now we've gone way off topic here, but that's some good search engine optimization.
It's terrible. Like
Yes.
I just want Google, man. Is it really that hard to ask? Anyway, sorry, that's a rant. So I mean, yeah, a half mile might be tough for IndyCar, but like I said, if it NASCAR races well there, maybe. But yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to have a last hurrah there next year.
Fair. All right. We'll agree to disagree on that one. But so if, on the other hand, if you could take any track right now, demolish it and rebuild it, what would it be? And if you have any idea, what would you do?
Of course, I'm picking Milwaukee. Of course, I am because I would do it just because I get sick and tired of people talking about Milwaukee, and then I would turn it into basically an IO Speedway because Milwaukee turning into a banked track would really aggravate Robin Miller, which therefore would be a little funny. So I'm going with Milwaukee.
You lost me at first, and then you reeled me back in at the end there. So, all right, well done. I'm gonna go Texas Motor Speedway. I am completely tearing it down and rebuilding it like it was before they rebanked turn 1 and 2 or turn 1 or whatever they did there to completely ruin the track. And when I resurface it, I am outlawing the PJ1 NASCAR track compound garbage that completely ruins the racing.
See, but then you're going to have to buy all the excess JR5 or whatever it's called, and you're going to have to like find something to do with it.
Listen, there's enough potholes in my town that we could probably fill a lifetime supply of that stuff.
Deal. All right. Cheer that NASCAR. Mike will take it all off your hands, and he will do some of the outer parts of Philadelphia some good. Okay, so we do have one kind of driver to keep our eye on, and that is iRacing legend Scott McLaughlin. David Malsher Lopez of Motorsport is reporting that McLaughlin is a possibility for the season finale at St. Petersburg. And when I say iRacing legend, let's not forget that Scott McLaughlin's also a Australian supercars legend. He is once again leading the championship, which seems like we've gone 5 winters without McLaughlin losing the championship or something. It's just crazy how good he is over there. So he's currently leading by 143 points, I think, with 3 rounds to go. But because of the way schedules have panned out this year, he does not have a schedule conflict for that St. Petersburg weekend. He can file for some sort of exemption on his quarantine. So when he gets to America, he could just be able to jump in the car right away without having to quarantine for 14 days. But when he does return to Australia, he will have to be in a hotel for 14 days. Tim Cindric, president of Team Penske, says there are no firm plans, but they are considering it. What do you think the odds are that this happens for St. Petersburg?
I don't know the Australian supercar schedule, and I see that he's, like you mentioned, 143 points up. I don't know what their point system is either, but I have to imagine that's a pretty insurmountable lead. But I am going to say, unfortunately, it's very low odds right now. It's just so tough to plan that sort of thing this year. He'd essentially have to be in the US probably by the end of the month so he can quarantine and then do his seat fitting and all of that stuff, maybe some simulator time here. So it's just feels like there's just too many hurdles to overcome this year to make that happen.
So the article Malsher Lopez of Motorsport tweeted out is that he can get exceptions for coming to America. So they should already have a seat for him because they did the COTA test, right? Like that's not something they just discard, is it?
I don't know. That's a great question. Unless they reused that foam for Elio's car for the 500. Probably not. I'm sure they probably have it in some Penske warehouse or Penske headquarters, but yeah, I don't know. I know there's exceptions, and I'm sure he'd be granted one, but he'd still have to quarantine. So I don't know if he's willing to miss a supercars race to make it happen. If he is, cool, but I just feel like it's a lot to do in a short period of time.
It kind of confuses me because you hear one thing in the news, but then you just see certain things, and it's like that's not how that works. Like for example, Fernando Alonso wasn't in America 14 days prior to his first practice at Indy. He was more like 5, and there was speculation like, oh, he's not doing it. Is he going to be here in time? And then all of a sudden he was at the IMS museum, and then bang, he was good to go. So I'm like, Australia has been super strict about it. With if you come back, you have to be 14 days. But for him coming to America, I'm not sure any, if at all, are required. Maybe he just needs a test, or I don't know.
That's a good point, though, is if he has to quarantine 14 days after he gets back from America, will that affect the back end of his supercar schedule at all?
Let's see when the 2020 Bathurst schedule is. And because I'm using Yahoo search, it is likely going to tell me what Long John Silver's special is today. The 2020 Bathurst. Oh, this is the endurance race. Sorry.
It's the end. I think it's towards the end of October.
What is it? The Bathurst 1000?
Yeah. The Bathurst 1000 this year is Thursday, October 8th through Sunday, October 11th.
Did you use Google for that?
Yes.
So irritating.
That is hilarious.
And then what is St. Pete, like late October? Yeah.
St. Pete is October. So I guess theoretically it could happen. I'm not going to spend time looking up the entire supercar schedule right now.
That is it is the season finale, as far as I know.
Okay. So all right. I'm still going to say no. I'm not going to change my answer, even though the logic is now quite flawed. I'm still going to say no.
I tried, folks. I tried to turn a no to a yes. I am going to say yes. I mean, especially if Cindric's going out of his way to comment and say that it's not a no, but they're considering it. To me, that means that they're definitely looking at it for sure. So it'd be really cool to see him in the seats. And then that kind of leads to something we've speculated about all year, which is Team Penske's driver lineup for next year. For some reason, they decided not to change anything. See, it's funny because they have 3 champions and like 65 Indy 500s currently within that enterprise. If McLaughlin does race at 20 or the season finale this season, is that a prelude of what's to come for 2021 for Team Penske? Do you think, especially with their IMSA program going under for now, unless they pick up another deal, do we see them moving back to 4 cars again?
Yeah, I think if I'm looking into my fake crystal ball here, we will see four Penske cars next year. And then I'm pretty sure I heard Penske will take 2021 off of IMSA and wait for the new regulations in 2022 with the LMDH DPI integration occurring. So they'll have I think a Porsche engine. I think that was one of the rumors that was going around there. Just Matt, don't look confused.
Were you speaking English just then?
Yeah, you need to read the racing news more.
I have no idea what you just said.
That's fine. We'll just leave it that way.
LMDH?
I don't honestly know what it stands for, but it's it's replacing the WEC hypercar plans that were for next year, I think. So that being said, I think Penske has the 4th team for next year, a 4th car for next year, and then maybe goes down to 3 and has to pick between those 4 for 2022.
So some sort of battle royale situation next year.
Yeah, I think we could see more willpower post-race press conferences from the ice bath again.
Fired immediately. Yeah, I'm in the same boat there, and it's going to be nice to have that option in Fantasy IndyCar again, where you're like 5 picks for the race weekend or whatever is Penske, and Scott Dixon. I miss those days. It was such a cop-out when it came to fantasy. So, yeah, I do hope it materializes whatever may happen with IMSA based on the RFGHG modifications or I don't I'm making up stuff. It just sounds so weird to me. I'm just kind of inept about it. But yeah, but hopefully Scott gets a chance to prove himself over here because I do think he is going to be an absolute beast.
Very well said.
And now it's time for Pit Lane Parlay's Pitfalls of the Week.
All right, pitfalls, everybody. I'm going to go first. Mine's pretty easy and not at all controversial. It's about the qualifying procedures at Monza during the F1 race. Again, just like last year, it looked pretty stupid. I was really thankful that we didn't have a big accident because cars were going 40 miles an hour in the straight while their drivers were trying to, get moving. We even saw Esteban Ocon blocking Kimi Räikkönen like it was the last lap of the Grand Prix. It kind of makes sense because Ocon doesn't want a slower Alfa Romeo in front of him when he wants to do his fast lap, but Räikkönen was on his fast lap, so the proper etiquette is to get out of his way. It was stupid, even to the point where Marcus Ericsson, who obviously listened to our show last week, tweeted that it was ridiculous and that they should do some sort of, once they get to, or they should just do one lap qualifying. There was somebody else who said maybe once they got to Q3, everybody should just get one lap. That'd be really cool. And honestly,
I think that came in on our Twitter, honestly.
Yeah, I can't remember where I saw it. That was a good idea too. And what's kind of weird about the whole thing was that Q3 was actually a normal session. Like guys weren't doing any of that drafting nonsense. They all kind of spread out and just did their own thing like they should. But Q1 and Q2 was weird. It was very weird. So I think if qualifying changes were to be at least like 1 weekend a year, I think Monza definitely needs a rethink because it has just gotten absurd there.
Agreed. I don't have anything to add, but thank you, Marcus, for listening to the show. I'll wrap it up. Again, a pretty short one. Rich Energy. They like to make news when they don't really need to be in the news. So as everybody knows, Claire Williams stepped down from Williams Racing F1 after this weekend, and Rich Energy's CEO had a very derogatory comment about how she was unfit to lead the team for, I'm not even going to actually say what she said because it's just embarrassing. But what right does he have to say anything like that when he runs a company where you can't even figure out where to buy the energy drinks in most countries, and they failed miserably as a sponsor for Haas last year? So this dude just continues to spew nonsense on the internet, and I really wish it would just stop at some point soon.
Yeah, what's the opposite of an undertone? All right, well, how about the blatant misogynistic statements by him were pretty disgusting and not needed. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that Claire Williams was the best team principal of all time, but it definitely did not come down to the fact that she was a woman, like he was leading on to believe. So there's no need for that at all. We could just say, unfortunately, she did not do as good as she could have done as her team principal position and moved on with it, but we didn't need to bring in the fact that she was a woman. That's a cheap shot, and that sticks with people for sure. So no place for it. And yeah, Haas F1 is a great establishment, and I'm sure if you try sponsoring them again, maybe you'll actually pay this time.
Yeah, now you're asking for too much. So we'll wrap it up there. Hope everybody enjoyed another week of episodes. Reminder, the first Mid-Ohio race is 4:30 on NBCSN. I think green flag is at 5. And the Sunday afternoon race is at 1 p.m., so a little earlier in the day. I know Sunday's qualifying is at 10 or 10:15 in the morning. So tight turnaround there. Enjoy all the racing, and we will be back to break it down next week.
Today's episode is brought to you by Grinding Coffee Company. It's a Black LGBTQ plus affiliated and owned coffee business that is aimed at providing coffee to gamers. 50% of all company branded merchandise proceeds are directly donated to charities that need their help. Go to grindingcoffee.co and use promo code PITLANEPARLAY for 13% off today. This cat.